Here we go. Yes, yes. Greetings, everyone. We want to welcome you to Resiliency of Vision. And what is meant by resiliency of vision, we're talking about it is a dialectical exchange of discussion that we are having as we build each other up one mind at a time. In any discussion that we have in the content is based upon resiliency, and resiliency is the author of our success. And we need to strengthen our restraint. In strengthening our restraint, we realize that weak people are destructive and strong people are constructive. And may we not be overwhelmed with the divisiveness that we have toward one another. And I also like to say that we are also coming from the frequency distribution center. And may your elevation or your revolution become the elevation of your consciousness as we function mathematically, attracting the virtues, the values, and the views as it pertains to the common, mature, benevolent community and each other as we listen to one another to overcome unhealthy vices as well as unhealthy attitudes. Albert Einstein said that the imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we know and understand, why imagination embraces the entire world and there ever will be to know and understand. So I like to operate as social health engineer or a social health engineer. Common Humanity Mission is a non-profit organization that deals with character resolve and conflict resolution. If any party that needs to be, it is a radical resolutionary party that deals with character resolve. Instead of medical doctors, we like to consider myself as a metaphysical or medical doctor, one who knows before anything can produce itself, it must first have order. So as Bob Marley would say, we cannot live the negative way. Make way for the positive day as we express the intent and the extent of the condition of how humanity. So I greet each and every one of you. Positive day. Yes, we have on the line today familiar brother by the name of Kenny Vaughn. As we had a discussion before in regards to the title of the show was called, or I like to say the discussion was mental fortitude. And I realized we must have this fortitude. And then we alluded to the fact in regards to Tiger Woods and how the things that he had to go through, and now he has won another major, and close to away from breaking the record of being the golfer that has the most won the most majors, at least in this known as North America or what have you. Now, brother Kenny, now you was talking about this how Tiger had to have this develop this sense of independence in his thinking, or I would like to call it this interdependence. That means being connected to the divine, whereas that he had to overcome these obstacles that was in his way, and even as he was very, very dominant on the golf course, and at the same time they even had to change the course itself, and but yet at the same time he still as he's losing his physical abilities possibly, but yet he has become more mentally strong. Would you want to speak on that, Brother Kenny?
Oh, no doubt, brother. Thank you, and good evening.
Yes, good evening to you.
Yes, like I said, Tiger got his mental strength back. You see, of anybody of color, for the most part, goes through a whole lot more than our Caucasian fellow, Caucasian fellows. And so, like, say a day prior to his event, he can go through a lot of stress, and it won't even be mentioned because he's used to going through those obstacles in his life. But a white person wouldn't even mention. So he gets all this. Actually, that gives him strength because even when they made the golf courses harder when he started playing, they want to make it harder for him to win. And he still conquers the field. So, in a sense, they're making him stronger. So, on any given day, when he has his mental back together, he's going to crush you. So, they're actually setting themselves up for failure. So, this guy always goes through, any person of color, and I really don't want to dwell on that, but it's fact and it's reality. They go through more than any person on this earth. So, that's actually building them up. So when they get to their point of their optimal point in their life, when they're ready to compete or whatever, they're going to be much stronger. But it's just the fact that we have to go through so much.
Yes, I agree with you in that regards. I remember Marcus Garvey has stated this before. He was talking about, he was looking at black people. He said their humanity wasn't being oppressed. He was saying they was being oppressed because of their race, because they were black, Yes.
And now let me give you an example here, kind of similar to that. If a cop pulls over a car, let's say two white people on the highway, they will curse that cop out and tell him they'll have his job, fumbling all around, no hands on the steering wheel, and get away with it. But now, see, I saw this little documentary when this black father was showing his children what to do and what he's going to do if he was ever to get pulled over, that he would have his hands on the dashboard and he will speak politely. And see, he has to go through all that just to be relevant as a citizen. And it's sad that he has to do that, but he's thinking about the danger of his that's going to happen to his family. I was riding with one of my partners back in the day, and the police was right behind us, and he said, "Hold on, watch me handle this." So he sprayed some air freshener, put his work glasses on, and put on some jazz music. And then when the cop came up to the window, he said, "Good day, how you doing, officer? Is there a problem?" And he said, "No, your blinker was off and you didn't make it. Oh, sorry, officer. I appreciate you. Thanks for that. Anything else you need from me?" He said, "No." So the officer just let him go. So when after we continued our journey on the highway, I said, "Wow." I said, "That amazed me, man." I said, "See how much we have to go through just to be relevant."
Yes.
It's always like we have to have an extra package, or in some sense you have to be a little lighter because they accept you more because you're more to their color. I'm not trying to get on the race side, but that's just the reality of the world today. We always got to do much more, We got to be 5-star instead of a 3-star average Caucasian person can also. They can proceed, but we have to be a 5-star to be equal with them in their eyes.
Yes, that's interesting. You should say that to be. Now, I always have, I come up with a 5-star approach, comprehensive, conscientious, and so forth. And so I know I just gave 2. But my point that I remember Booker T. Washington gave a speech, and he was talking about that we're only symbolically equal to whites. Now, a sign condensed becomes a symbol. So the thing is to be equal. Now, as Malcolm said, who are they that we can compare, that we compare ourselves to them, and then when it comes to being equal? You follow what I'm saying? So the thing is, though, when you talk about that freedom, we talk about justice, we talk about equality. Now, those things could be, to some degree, someone wrote a book about justice is nothing but a matter of theory, So it is the theory of being equal to another human being, because you compare yourself to another human being, and that human being in which you are comparing yourself too is no one to compare. You can't compare yourself to them because you see in the manner, in a way in which they added the. Let's put it this way: if you looked at the collective psychology of a people, which comes from their mentality, and the collective psychology that comes from their mentality is designed to create corruption, chaos, turmoil, and confusion, lies, deceit, and deception. How can you compare yourselves to that particular group of people? I think that is very out of order, because I realize, how can law go before order? Before anything to manifest itself, it must first have order. So what my point is that the society in which we live, and that has been we're living in this society here in America with the mental attitude and this collective psychology of a people. It puts people in a position that they are out of order because some people are just invert in their thinking, and they are under some type of an illusion as if they are the people in which one needs to compare him or herself with as being equal. You want to speak to that?
Now I'm just going to give you an example of sports when I was younger coming up. I was pretty much in a diverse neighborhood as a teenager. And one day, coach asked me, I was on the baseball field, and said, "How do you feel? What do you feel like, Kenny?" And my answer was, "I feel like I'm about three people out here." Because in my mind, I thought my level of competition was much better than the guys around me. I just thought I would just destroy them. So that's what I'm talking about when that type of thinking can get you through a lot, no matter what your surroundings are. So I try to just pat myself on the back and go with my natural means of my strength, and that just sees me through a lot of stuff. And I think that's where people tend to forget. They let this fake reality around them, I would say, control them, and then they try to, like, when they say keep up with the Joneses type thing. And if you can get past that, and stay put in your own mentality, you can get through a lot of things. I find that even when I became sober, when I know what I can do and my strengths, if I stick with that, maybe you can inspire somebody else. Maybe the ones on the side that's trying to detour you or might come join in, or you might rub off on them. They'll be like to the side. You can just keep driving on with as long as if you're doing things the right way, if you're doing things with integrity, it always conquers everything else too.
Yes, that's I like that. I'm trying to grab be much more control over this particular mic here without being too overbearing. But yeah, integrity is key. I've learned like this, that which I seek to protect and defend is my integrity, and the weapon that I use is dignity, and the manner and way in which I go about it is the benevolent way. So in doing so, you deal with the word nature, and your one's essential nature that be. And then we're talking about a sheep and a wolf. Of course, they're animals, but they're two different species. I never seen like a fish. His nature is to stay in the water. Swim, and the and the nature of a bird, is to fly. And we're dealing with species, two different species, but yet they're animals. So a wolf and a sheep, they don't interact, but the sheep can be deceived to saying that, we're both animals, but I don't see species. So the same applies that we're both human beings, black and white, but I don't see black and white. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm trying to say is that even though that term has been used and applied to a people to make one feel superior and to make another feel inferior, so that's a standard now. Let's use this. Let's look at it another way. If one says that the standard that is said that you can't see that I am superior over you and you are inferior over me. If you can't see that, then there is a problem, right? Now, that's a standard that has been set by someone else and does not necessarily mean that it's so. In fact, it is not so. It is the fact that it is a blatant lie. Anytime if you look at the athletic field, when you're talking about brothers who the athletic field tried to keep brothers from playing sports to become, to show their ability that they can learn, and I mean that they can play the game at a high level. And you see that we know that blacks can play anything, any game at a high level, whatever it may be. Tiger with golf, and what's the guy of a black guy named that played it before Tiger? There's a few of them. I can't think of their name. Sorry about that, brothers or family. Then you deal with the basketball. Then you deal with the black quarterbacks, and so on, as if they cannot. Lee Elder was one of them, yes, and it's several more in the golf. Then you took the blacks weren't able to play the quarterback position because they weren't able to, consider not to be able to think. You know what I'm saying? But then we talk about being able to think. We're talking about one's decision making. We're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about one become disciplined. In their thinking, and one becomes disciplined in their thinking. Then they make better decisions, and when they make better decisions, they know how to be able to solve problems. So we're talking about being critical thinking, and critical thinking is defined as the intellectual discipline process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reason, communication as a guide to a belief or a action. So the point in regards to any athlete or any individual, whether it be athletic or academic, you must be critical in your thinking. And when you're talking about discipline, I say discipline precedes knowledge. I always come to conclude that. So in order to be a disciple, you must first have discipline. So therefore, it is the process that you're going through. And like a test is designed to see how you process information. So whatever it is that Tiger was going through, he processed the information accurately, and he processed the information properly. You see, and by him being able to do that, his natural inclination within his nature kicked in, because we're talking about, I always say, intellectual interdependence. That means that when you talk about religion, there is no need to reconnect to anything unless we have been disconnected from the divine. What I mean by the divine, I mean it is in our nature to excel. It is in our nature to exceed. It is in our nature to have this inclination to do good and to be the best in which we can be in a civilized, in a humane manner. What you say on that?
I agree 100% with what you just said.
Yes.
I agree 100%.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you, like you said, when in a civilized manner.
Yes.
I mean, that's just how. I mean, that's just speaking like, that's taking it off from integrity. In a civilized manner, that's how we want to live anyway. But then, if we get caught up in not living our inner self, we can always get deterred. You can go off easily, because with this whole media and this whole system here is built to make you fail.
Yes.
It's built to make you fail.
Yes. And I realize that failure is a result of folly, and folly is a result of fear. And fear is a result of frustration, you see. And I realized that any critical thinkers are masters in their, not only in their decision making, but also in conflict management, you see. So in dealing with conflict management, remember, it's meant to manage any type of conflict. And remember, you and I had a discussion earlier about something, a proposition that was giving to me when you and I was doing a particular business interaction one with another. And whereas that you had shared with me that you was going to come through, and you didn't necessarily come through at that particular time in which I wanted you to come through, but yet you held true to your word. And in that contamination and corruption, probably of the best intentions of my nature, that I wanted to create a conflict or an environment of conflict, not only within myself, but then that conflict within myself will lead to a conflict with you. But yet my nature kicked in because I value the relationship that we have one with another. You follow what I'm saying? So that's how you manage the conflict. You have to value the relationship with each other. And that's what I mean in a civilized, humane, manner, because you got to think about it. Many people form relationship with material things, but they don't form a relationship with one's humanity. And remember, I shared this before. I remember a gentleman who was very radical in his thinking or his ideas, wrote several books. One of them I don't have the other one. I can't recall the name of the book. I think it's Exposing the Satanic Lies of Western History. I believe that's what it's called. But needless to say, and a good brother who made his transition, who was a military guy. By the way, Brother Kenny Vaughn is a veteran. He's a still military guy. I guess I don't know if you say you use the term ex-military, but he's a veteran. I thought I'd put that in there. Yes. And needless to say, and this guy who was a military brother as well, he made his transition. He was saying to me about the gentleman who wrote these two books and very radical in his thinking. He said, "Man, and what if you find out that the woman who he's married to is white, right? And push come to shove, she was white." As Marcus Garvey said, if anybody fights against the issue of race, irrespective of their political affiliation, I don't think they're dealing with the issue of race. So, why did I say that? People who have concern about mixed relationships, but deal with the acclimated society, what's it called? That's just with the benevolent community, because some people, whites and blacks, married each other and they created a benevolent community. Well, you used to say, and a black aristocrat. But my point was this here. Is that I asked him, well, why did you marry a white woman? I asked him the question, and he said, man, I married her humanity. I thought that was the most powerful thing I ever heard.
Powerful, man.
Yeah,
powerful.
Yeah, man.
I would take that over anything.
Yeah, man.
I would take that over anything. Actually, I'm dealing with a young lady right now that has a very, very strong humanity, man. I'm so attached to that. She even said, I hope we develop a good chemistry. And my answer was, we most likely will.
Yes.
Because even if we don't, we're going to be really good friends.
Yeah, man. And that's what's important, because I realize that, friends are important. And one thing I realize about people when it comes to friends or what have you, man, people just want to know that they care. You know what I'm saying? They want to know that you care for them. They if I care for you and you care for me, and we care for one another, whatever it may come our way, we know that we will sacrifice, and we will make provisions for each other to make sure whatever it is that we are dealing with and whatever it is that we're going through, that we're going to see each other through, and we're going to work this thing out together. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about, because one thing I realize, if anything, that we need to shoulder together is that we need to shoulder, the responsibility together. And when we shoulder the responsibility together, we know that the weight is not as heavy if one shoulder responsibility. As opposed to two shouldering responsibility, the weight becomes lighter. And when you make a transition from that which we think is a burden to us or one to another, the transition is this wise, is that it's not a burden when we are there and shouldering the responsibility one for another. It's not a burden, but yet, once again, as I said earlier, it is a responsibility. So we can't see things as a burden. We have to see when we're assisting each other, it is our duty. It is our responsibility. And I realize, and if that's the case, then we have to realize a term called accountability. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So if there's any decline in anything, it is a lack of accountability. So we have to be accountable and give account for who we are, what we say, and what we do. So in that be the case, in that wise, that the strength that we have, the inner strength that we have, and the inner strength that continues to push us, motivate us, inspire us, enlighten us, inform us, and encourage us, will take us through any obstacle, anything that may come our way, that if the course changes, remember, direction may change, but destiny stays the same.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So it's been grand speaking with Brother Kenny Vaughn. You have any closing words or remarks, questions, challenges, concerns that you would like to add?
Well, during this conversation, I had something sitting on my mind for a minute. Mm-hmm. And I would think, someone asked me, if you can have one thing happen every day, what would it be? And my answer was, for everyone to experience some joy at least one time a day for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm.
Well said, brother. Well said. Well, resiliency of vision. Yes. As Bob Marley would say, we cannot live the negative way. Make way for the positive day. And as it says in that book, come to make the crooked places straight and the rough places smooth. So, until the next time, be straight, be smooth, and have a positive day. Till the next time, talk to you.